the point of this quiz, I really probably shouldn't even call it a quiz, more like just a, I don't know, form to fill out, I guess, is to get you thinking about what kind of some of the good speeches that you've seen, some things that you value when you listen to other people speak, some things that bother you when you listen to other people speak. So maybe turn to a partner just for a minute and share the responses that you wrote down. And then what I'd like to do when we come back together as a whole class is to have you share what your partner said, if your partner is okay with that. Does that sound okay? Okay, so maybe it'll take more than a minute, but a minute or two, and then we'll come together as a whole class and see what you put. All right, let's stop you there. I apologize for cutting off your conversations, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So I'll ask for a volunteer who would share something that their partner, or some of you I see worked in groups of three, which is fine. The person that their partner thought was a good speaker, those characteristics that the quiz talks about. If you want to mention just those quirks or those tics that are irritating, whichever you found most interesting. Mark.
The people in my group, JFK and MLK, were Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy were great public speakers.
Oh, both of them did?
Yeah.
You both had the same?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, very nice. Okay, good. And then I'll ask you guys to follow up. So, Andrew, what were some of the characteristics of those two people that make them good speakers?
I thought they had a good tone of voice when they talk, and their body language was very good, that they're confident in what they're saying, and they have good use of like breaks in their speech to enunciate their important parts.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, so body language, tone of voice, those things contribute to confidence, you're saying? And then breaks in their speech for enunciation.
Yeah, just like a pause.
Interesting. Okay. How many of you, when you've given a public speech before, tend to talk much faster than you normally do? Number of hands, that's I think a common thing that a lot of us experience, but I imagine you're not alone, Andrew, and really valuing some of the pauses and breaks for words or ideas to kind of sink in. Excellent, good. Somebody else, another volunteer. Are you more comfortable sharing your own answers? Because you can do that too. I'll take whatever you like. Yeah, go ahead, Grant, and then we'll come to you, Sam.
Internet both said we don't like when people say and like in your speech.
Oh, okay.
Know what you're going to say and just convey it rather than fill a dead space with an or a like.
Okay.
Something like that.
Good, excellent, yeah. So I'll ask another question. So a lot of you said that you maybe talk faster than you normally would when you're giving a speech. We've talked about how pausing is something that people value in speeches, but how many of you are uncomfortable with that silence when you're the one in front of a room and you want to fill it with something? You want to say you want to say like.
I just feel like I unintentionally say a lot.
Okay.
It's not just because I'm trying to fill the space, it's just I'm kind of thinking and I don't realize I'm doing this.
Yes.
Transition words, it's one of those words that.
It's a filler word, right? It's something that you just use when probably more than we even realize. Whoops. Yeah. Just because it's something that we do. And talking about oral presentations, as a side note, kind of while I'm giving an oral presentation is a little bit concerning. So be critical, but realize that this is a craft that we're all learning. Sam, you had your hand up too.
I just talked about the things that I do like with speeches is like when I'm able to relate to something, whether it's like somehow the speaker ties the whole picture back to, not just me, but like can tie it back to a whole room if possible. But I like when there's specific things in a speech that I can relate to because that makes me engage in the speech more.
Good. Excellent. So just the content of the speech matters a ton, right? We can talk about something that is the most interesting topic in the world and not be very polished in our delivery or not be very practiced and have it falter a little bit. But if the content is engaging, people are still probably going to listen. On the flip side, if you're trying to talk to an audience who may not be that interested in what you have to say, some of those things that we've talked about earlier, the confidence building, the, you know, being polished or whatever, is maybe more important, right? Can you think of an example? Like, are you thinking of a specific example of a speech that's like where somebody's done that successfully?
No, I was thinking about my speech class this summer because I took it at a community college at home. And when we would give our speeches, we'd have to, like, before we presented our topic, we'd have to, like, present it to our teacher and why it would be relatable to the class and why people in the class would, like, enjoy it.
Okay.
So it's easier to talk about things that, like, you're confident in or, like, personal experiences.
Good.
But something I'm confident or like, have gone through other people
Yeah.
might have not and might not even care about. So then, through, like, learning about how to do that this summer, that's what made it stand out to me.
Okay, good. Yeah, I like that, and I like that a lot, especially because on Wednesday, if you recall, we're going to have our informal presentations where the focus of your presentation should be on your process working together as a group instead of the actual information that you included in your technical description. My hope in doing that is that that'll be more relatable to us as a class. You've all been through the same process, working together as a group to form this technical description. And so hopefully you'll be able to relate to that versus somebody who's just up here talking about a principle of, you know, I don't want to pick on one group's technical description, but talking about a topic that maybe not the whole class is that interested in. Good. Who else did you put on your list? I'd like some more names. Who else do you identify as, or do you think of as really good speakers? Yeah, Jake and then Bryce.
Barack Obama?
Okay, Barack Obama. Did he show up on anybody else's list? I assume so. Good. Yeah. I think widely regarded as an excellent public speaker. Bryce?
Bill Nye.
Oh, good. Okay. Why Bill Nye?
I went to one of his lectures 2 years ago or something like that.
Was he here?
Yeah, he was at Drake.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like super high energy. Like he's more or less exactly what he did in the show, so more reserved, I guess. So
Interesting.
I find to see the difference
Okay.
between the two. So.
Awesome. Good. I like that. When we think of public speeches in America, we think of political speeches a lot of times, right? Presidents come to mind immediately, but entertainers certainly are giving public speeches. Did any of you think of comedians, like a particular stand-up comedy routine, Bailey?
I said Ellen DeGeneres, not like a specific, but just her in general.
Okay.
I listened to it was a commencement speech of hers.
Oh, nice.
From whatever the university is in New Orleans.
Okay. Good. What did you like about it? I'm not familiar with this speech. Was she being funny intentionally in it, or what was she doing?
Yeah, it was like a combination of humor and then like her life journey, because she's from that area.
Yeah, okay.
So and it was like the graduating class that had gone through Hurricane Katrina. So it was
Okay.
like sentimental, but also like appropriate humor to
Yeah.
keep everyone's attention.
Cool, awesome. Oh, one more, I don't want to cut anybody off. So the speeches that you're all thinking of, like the JFK, MLK speeches, I can't think of Barack Obama ever giving a speech that I've seen where he uses a PowerPoint. Did Bill Nye use a PowerPoint in the lecture that you attended? Okay. Ellen probably didn't in a commencement speech, right? So a lot of these great speeches that we think of are done without the use of some kind of visual, some kind of PowerPoint, right? Have you, well, Sam, so you took a speech class. Was one of the requirements to give a speech without a visual aid, or did you have to use visual aids? How did that work?
We only had to use a visual aid for one of our speeches. So 3 of them we couldn't use anything, and then one of them we had to.
Okay. How many of you have had a similar experience where you've given a speech without a visual aid? Okay, most of you. What's your preference? If you're assigned to give a speech, do you think, oh, I want to create a PowerPoint because it's something that'll kind of help me stay organized and move through? Or do you not want to because it's a little bit of extra work and maybe people find them boring? Jake?
It's tempting for me to want to use a PowerPoint because it gives me guidance as to how I want to organize the content of what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
I realize that if I don't use it, it forces me to have a better understanding of it, and usually I rely less on the visual.
Good.
It makes my speech actually more engaging.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You have to practice more in order to give a successful talk if you're not going to rely on PowerPoint to help you through. Good.